We light the first candle to honor Lakota spirituality. When one sits in the hoop of the people, one must be responsible because all of creation is related. And the hurt of one is the hurt of all, and the honor of one is the honor of all. And whatever we do affects everything in the universe. We light the second candle to honor Buddhism, because all existence is founded upon the ever-present state of union. Everything already exists in a state of tranquility. However, this state of tranquility is masked from us by our assumption that there is a separation, that there is a problem. We light the third candle to honor Sikhism. Even as the scent dwells within the flower, so God resides always within your heart. We light the fourth candle to honor Islam. Our bread and water are of one table. The progeny of Adam are as a single soul. We light the fifth candle to honor Judaism. Actually, we are all divine light. We sparkle, we glow. But when fear arrives, it is like water on fire. It quenches our heart's warmth. We light the sixth candle to honor Hinduism. When we are afraid of someone or something, it is because we do not feel that particular person or thing is a part of us. When we have established conscious oneness with the Absolute, with the infinite vast, then everything there is part of us. And how can we be afraid of ourselves? We light the last candle to honor Christianity. Your life and my life flow into each other as wave flows into wave. And unless there is peace and joy and freedom for you, there can be no real peace or joy for freedom in me. And after reading all these, I just had one other quote that came to my mind that I want to add in from a well-known American atheist who said, Your Honor, years ago I recognized my kinship with all living beings, and I made up my mind that I was not one bit better than the meanest on earth. I said then and I say now that while there is a lower class, I am in it, and while there is a criminal element, I am of it, and while there is a soul in prison, I am not free.
Today's reading comes from Friedrich Nietzsche. One's own self is well hidden from one's own self. Of all mines of treasure, one's own is the last to be dug up. If you will, take these words into the silent for a moment with me. And centered here in this infinite moment of love, I'm knowing that the peace and the oneness and the love of all of beingness, of all of what we call God, of all of what we call life, is right here, right now, present in us and among us and as us. I'm knowing that we are deeply and continuously blessed, that this wonderful time together is a blessing, is a healing, that we are inspired and enlightened, and that we're given gifts of great wisdom and hope and peace. And I give thanks for everyone participating in this service. I know that we are all joined in this love and in this effort of bringing more peace, more love, more happiness, more wholeness. And I say thank you, and so be it. And so it is.
Wow. Thanks for those candle lighting readings too, you guys. I really needed them today. Especially that one about, the problem is that you perceive there's a problem. There is no problem. we're talking about some really hard stuff these days, and today's no exception. Last week we talked a little bit about this idea of oneness and the truth about who we are, that each one of us is part of this wholeness that we call universe. And I quoted Rumi, "You are not a drop in the ocean, you are the ocean in a drop." And that, of course, refers to who we really are, and is also a reminder that there is only one ocean, right? And we're all residing in that one ocean, yet we're all these drops. We are the ocean in a drop. And we say here at Center for Spiritual Living often, God is all there is. And that's sounds like such a simple statement, but the definition of God is not the one that might spring to mind from traditional religion. It's the totality of everything that exists, the energy and the creativity and the force that created the universe and it holds it together, and the matrix, the power of the universe that I can only call love, that interpenetrates all of it. It's this universal intelligence that somehow set this whole thing up so that there would be a universe and a galaxy and a solar system and a planet that gave rise to you and you and you and you and you and me. It's pretty remarkable when you think about it, that all that happened, that we're even here, let alone all the millions of other forms of life that are on the planet. And so all of that is what I think of when I say the word God or spirit. It's all of that. It's all there is. There's nothing outside of it. There's nothing in opposition to it. It includes everything. It includes the ocean. It includes the drops. The ocean is the whole, and we are individualized drops of ocean residing in the ocean, and the ocean resides in the drop. And this is hard sometimes, I think, to remember, given the fact that we are individualized. We still have to walk around in this form, on this planet, in this lifetime, and navigate the circumstances, right? Those are the circumstances. But the truth behind the circumstances is that we're not really even all that solid. We're certainly not singular and individual. We are actually all one life, one with the one. In ministerial training, the students take a lot of different topics besides religion. They take science, they take psychology, they take philosophy, they take religion, and then they take leadership and all that other stuff. But part of the science class is to tell the students that sort of what science is telling us now about what is really going on here. And one of the things that science tells us is that everything is energy, kind of slowed down and condensed. Einstein came up with that: energy equals matter times the speed of light squared. So millions of years ago, there was some energy that kind of slowed down and condensed into stars, and then those stars blew up again and turned back into energy and molecules, and the stardust somehow found its way then into galaxies, and those galaxies further broke into solar systems and planets, and the stardust found its way into all of that, and then into my body, and then into your body. So we are stardust and slowed down star energy. That's what we are. That's what we're made of. And at the subatomic level, every atom in our body is vibrating with that energy of existence, and the electrons in our bodies, in every atom of our bodies, are jumping all over the place. And we're always exchanging electrons with the person next to us and with the chair beneath us. Quite literally, we are exchanging energy all the time with other people. So we are literally one in this field of energy, as well as spiritually. And at the subatomic level, there is no separation between you and your chair, you and the person next to you, you and life, the air, everything. There is no you and them. There's simply this oneness that vibrates at various levels. And there's nothing that exists outside this field of vibration. It is the infinite field, right? And so the essence of our oneness is our connection to that idea that we are an individualization in this infinite field, but the infinite field is all that we are. Each of us is everything and everyone, and everything and everyone is part of us. So we have the freedom to rethink, table and me, Lenza and me. I'm separate from everything else. We have the opportunity to switch our perspective a little and begin to think from the perspective that really we're part of this infinite energy flow, and we have the freedom to choose to see that and to choose to see ourselves in everything and everyone, and choose to see everyone and everything in us. And when we do that, then our notion of self loses some of its, it has a way of controlling us, right? I am myself and I am not you, and therefore I'm going to do what I want to do, and to hell with you, right? I'm going to get mine. That's what the little notion of self does to us. And the broader notion of self, when we widen it and broaden it to everyone, then that wider and broader perspective of self leads us to an infinite expression of love. That's why Jesus could say, love your neighbor as yourself, because your neighbor is yourself, right? And you are your neighbor. So in our book this month, there's a quote from Alan Watts, who said, "So then, the relationship of self to others is the complete realization that loving yourself is impossible without loving everything you define as other than yourself." If I just love this that's bound by my skin and my perspective, I'm only loving a tiny little bit of myself. It's only when I deepen and broaden and widen this definition and begin to love whatever I see and whatever I run into as myself that I have that kind of relationship with myself that Alan Watts is talking about. And I think that as what Jesus was talking about too. If I can call myself not separate from that which you call yourself. Because if I quit doing that, if I quit saying, here I am and there are you, in order to love myself, I have to love it all. I have to love it all. Because it's all part of me. And there's another quote in the book from an American teacher named Harry Palmer, and he said, when you adopt the viewpoint that there is nothing that exists that's not a part of you, that there is no one who exists who is not a part of you, then any judgment you make is self-judgment. And any criticism you level is self-criticism. Then you will extend yourself to an unconditional love that will be the light of the world. I love that quote. I love it. It's so pithy. It's so pithy. Any judgment I make is self-judgment. Any criticism I level is self-criticism. Wow. From a spiritual viewpoint, that makes perfect sense to me. And so psychology also tells us that what pushes our buttons in another person is simply what we have refused to acknowledge about ourselves. Right? My buttons get pushed because you show me something that I won't acknowledge in me. What we see in others is a reflection of ourselves. And then brain science helps us firm this up, I think. Our senses bring into us every second 11 million bits of information. But our brains can only process 50 bits per second. Right there we have a limited perspective, right? Very limited. That's the first limitation we have to realize on knowing what reality is, that we're only getting a little tiny bit of it. And then the data that we pick up, our brains process in a certain way. It's filtered through a lot of things. First, it's checked for danger. Is this dangerous? If so, I'm going to respond this way. If not, I will then sort it and compare it to past experiences and see what it's like and assign meaning to it. And all that happens like totally subconsciously in a nanosecond. So something happens, we register it, we decided whether it's dangerous or not. Our brains sort it, rate it, compare it, classify it, and give it meaning. Boom. The things that we judge or criticize in others, we are doing so. They push our buttons because they remind us of something in here. Like something our parents might have said, or some experience we had when we were kids, or something we got called out for and shamed for. Those are the big ones. And they're stuck in our subconscious filters, and so something comes in, and we rate it, we compare it to that experience and go, oh God, I hate that. And then we decide that this other person is someone we don't want to be near because they're this way. When really it's we're this way. And they're just reminding us that there's this piece of us we've not accepted. This is an amazing thing. This built-in detector. It's really quite a gift, isn't it? Because one of the readings, I think, said something about not being able to know yourself. Seeing our blind spots is very difficult. That's why we call them blind spots. We can't see them. And these are our blind spots. But when it's right there in front of us and another person, and that built-in detector begins to see what we've been blind to, we have a gift, we have an opportunity. We can, of course, choose to remain willfully blind, but I think we're here to do something different. I think we're not here to remain willfully blind. In that moment, we have the opportunity to stop and identify, oh, my button just got pushed. My button just got pushed. And how does this trait that's driving me so crazy in this other person, where does that live in me? Where is this button that's being pushed and making me nuts? We'll find out a lot about who we think we are in that moment. Find out a whole lot. And sometimes we have to do it over and over and over again until we finally get it. I spent, oh my God, I can't tell you, 40 years judging my oldest sister very harshly. And people would say things like, well, you two are very much alike. And I go, I am not like her. I am not, and you can't tell me I am. Until finally this sunk in, and I said, oh my God, I'm very much like her. We both have the same shame wounds in us. And so when she does something out of her, what some call shadow self, it triggers that same thing in me. And I get insecure. And I'm afraid no one's going to like me. And I'm afraid I'm going to be rejected. It's no wonder she trips my triggers. And guess what? She's totally different now. Who changed, I wonder, right? She is a totally different person these days. It's just amazing to me. But we can choose in those moments when we're given this gift of reflection of ourselves, we can choose to stop and look and love what's going on. We can choose to stop and find that place within us that's wounded and love it because it's part of this divine stardust being that we are. We can seek to understand why we've rejected that part of us, why we've repressed that part of us, why we have projected it out into the world. We can choose to love it, and we can choose to forgive ourselves for letting our buttons be pushed, and the person who pushed them for pushing. We can choose to do all that. And if we're willing to look at that person who just works our last nerve and in our minds, thank them. Thank them for showing us something we couldn't see about ourselves. Then we can choose to love it all. We can choose to love it in ourselves. We can choose to love it in them. We can choose to love it wherever we see it. And we can choose to just love humanity as humanity is. We can love ourselves as we are in this moment. And it's that willingness that gives rise to that unconditional love that Harry Palmer was talking about. He called it the light of the world. Just imagine for a moment what it would be like if we were willing to walk through our lives without judging anyone, most of all ourselves. If we were willing to walk through our lives without criticizing what someone's wearing or how they're driving or whatever it is that we're criticizing. What if instead we just choose to thank them for showing us something about ourselves we may not have known? Then we would be grateful for the signal. We'd be grateful for the signal so that we could stop repressing and rejecting parts of ourselves. And that practice, I think, would lead us to realize more and more and more this lack of separation. There is no separation between you and everything, between everything and you. There's no separation between ourselves and the oneness that simply is. And that really would light up the world, wouldn't it? Mm-hmm. It really would light up the world. Think about the people you know or know of who live that way. There aren't very many. You can sort of count them on one hand. I think about Mr. Rogers. He never judged anybody, right? He was always kind. I think about the Dalai Lama, who giggles every time he finds out something he didn't know about himself before. He and Bishop Desmond Tutu get together and they point out each other's blind spots. And they giggle and laugh and throw up their hands and change. It's amazing. I think about Mother Teresa going into the slums in Calcutta and working with lepers. She didn't judge them, she just fed them, right? There aren't a whole lot of people like that around, but they absolutely do light up the world when we run into them. And I know this might sound like madness to you. It might sound like madness that we're supposed to pay close attention to the people who really bug us. I know it sounds like madness that when we see someone on television that we want to yell at, instead we go, thank you, you're showing me something about myself. And really take it into our minds and think about it, you know? It's mad. It sounds like madness to embrace those parts of ourselves that we have treated as ugly stepchildren, so to speak. But that's exactly, it's in the midst of that madness that we wake up. It's in the midst of that madness that we start to understand all of who we are. It's in the midst of the madness that we can say, you know, this shame event happened a long time ago, and it's not happening now. And the people who were present, who instigated it, whatever you want to call it, are gone. And I don't have to feel ashamed in this moment right now. I can actually love that part of me that holds that shame. I can actually love whoever it was that brought this to my attention. I can actually just put my arms around myself and realize that I can love myself right where I am, right now, and that I am not the things I have rejected and repressed. I am not my judgments. I am not my criticisms. I'm not any of that. Then we can start to see who we are, right? I was talking to somebody last week who said he was beginning to understand God by knowing what God wasn't. And the same is true of ourselves. When we start to realize what we're not, we uncover what is already there. That stardust that's gleaming and glowing and sparkling. This whole built-in detector thing is so wonderful because it works the other direction as well. When we see somebody that lights us up, they only light us up because we are already, that's who we are. Those same characteristics live in us. So when, you see the Dalai Lama laughing at himself, it's only because you can laugh at yourself too when you find yourself living out of something that's 60 or 100 years old. Not 100, I don't think any of us have gotten that far, but close. Something you've been dragging around your whole life. When we see someone we admire or esteem, it's because we have those characteristics too. And so we get these opportunities all the time. to see both the highest and best things that we've rejected in ourselves and the kind of, creepy things that we've rejected in ourselves. And when we sort of bring them all into the same room and simply love them all, then the light gets brighter and the dark gets smaller. The repressed things get weaker and the strong things get stronger because we're uncovering who we really are. When we remember that this is all a mirror of our inner responses, we have the opportunity to just love it, to lean into it, to embrace it, to become unconditional about it. We come to realize that what we really are is the love of the universe. Underneath all the other stuff, we are the love of everything. All of it, vast and unconditional and infinite. And we are that.